Someone said their nationality was Massachusetts. Let's go to Massachusetts. Somebody said their nationality was New Yorker, Virginian, Texan, Indianan, Floridian. That's the nationality. Sellouts. No, we didn't sell anything. Ohio, OH. Dude, that's what happens when you don't know the law. Because he wants you to think that because he's black, then he's magically a Moor. But they don't tell you that at common law, the Anglos and the Saxons trace their lineage and ancestry back to the people of Moses. And that in ancient England, prior to William the Conqueror, there was a mixed group of white and black people. Yeah, they don't tell you that, do they? But we're the sellouts. Right. Massachusetts said that the legislator is bound by the Constitution of the state. They said the legislator of Massachusetts is in no just sense sovereign. It is but an agent with limited authority, and it cannot rightfully transcend the bounds fixed in the Massachusetts Constitution. Who is the sovereign of Massachusetts? Because they said it. They said it, not me. The Supreme Court of Massachusetts said that the legislator, the people who write the statutes, are not sovereign. Oh, I found it. I was looking for this the other day. I thought I was. No, this ain't it. But I'll read it anyway. Look at this. This is the Massachusetts. When Massachusetts became a state, Massachusetts was one of the original 13. So Massachusetts said that Massachusetts then on becoming independent, was as complete a nation as France. They said Massachusetts and France, they're both nations. You know how crazy that sounds? No, but Massachusetts is one of the United States. That's not what they said. They said Massachusetts is as independent as France. Michigan is a nation. All the states are nations. That's why all the states have flags, have their own flags. You know where those state flags came from? They were the, what do they call them? The coat of arms for the different states during the Civil War. They didn't have state flags prior to the Civil War. But after the Civil War, they took the, what they call the coat of arms, or maybe I think it's called it's part of the original seal of the state militia. Okay, this is another topic for another day, but I got to study it more. But the state militia is a nasty, nasty concept in the Constitution. Technically, I don't want to get in trouble. I can get in trouble for real. But, okay. Let me read this first. I don't want to get in trouble. All right. Massachusetts said they're as independent as France. They said they possess the same absoluteness of will as well as supremacy and exclusiveness of control over her territory. They said it is necessary that the purpose of forming a new government in this province on the authority of the people only. Who are the sovereigns of Massachusetts? Who are the sovereigns of Ohio and of Washington State and whatever state you live in? They go to Pennsylvania. Now Pennsylvania said, let me grab the mic. They said the oath prescribed for the members being as follows. I, insert their name there, do declare that I do not hold myself bound to bear allegiance to King George III, and that I will steadily and firmly oppose the tyrannical proceedings of the King and Parliament, and to establish and support a government in the province on the authority of the people only. They said, to the people of Pennsylvania, friends and countrymen, in obedience to the power that we derive from you. They said we're becoming servants. And they say by the phrase and quotations sovereignty, I do not mean government. Because they said the word sovereignty has but one meaning, and that is the supreme and uncontrollable authority. Hence, it cannot be predicated on the so-called government or the powers of government in a republic. They said these must always be subject to the organized people, the Commonwealth. Isn't that nasty? Look, this is some nasty stuff, y'all. They say, as sovereignty in a republic necessary includes the right to establish, amend, and abolish governments, it is simply absurd to say that a government in a republic is sovereign. Why? Because you got to study a republic. In the federal constitution, I talk about this all the time. In a federal constitution, they talk about Article 4, Section 4, that the feds are to guarantee to every state in the union a Republican form of government. Okay, well, a Republican form of government doesn't mean that Donald Trump is the president. That's not what a Republican form of government means. Now, understand this. To understand the Constitution, you have to go to the common law. That was the thing they wanted. That is the reason they fought the Revolutionary War. Because what they said, King and Parliament tried to take away the common law of England. And so they said, we declare independence so we can keep the law that we wanted and that the government was not obeying. Right? And what were the two principal things of the common law? Due process and a trial by jury. They said, we want that above all else, and we're dropping bodies over it. And so they got the common law of England as their law. No, republic does not mean representative democracy. Again, as I'm explaining, the Republican form of government, when they got ready to break off from England, they had been under a monarchy their entire existence. So they didn't know originally what it meant. So the preachers of the day went to the first 10 books of the Bible to understand what a Republican form of government meant. They said a Republican form of government they got from the first 10 books of the Bible, because if you study the first 10 books of the Bible, that family called the people of God did not live under a secular government. They operated as one family and up until a certain point, obeyed the voice of God. They didn't get a king until 1 Samuel, King Saul. And they got King Saul out of their disobedience to not obeying God's law. And I think it was Joshua. I don't know which king it was or which father it was at the of the family. I think it was Joshua. Well, they said, or Samuel, I remember. But when they got ready to get King Saul, it was because the people begged essentially for a secular government. And as a result, God gave them King Saul as a punishment. Because they said, give us a king to judge us like all the nations. Actually, I have this. It's 1 Samuel 12:17. They got books about this stuff. I'm not making none of this up. They said the reason we called it a Republican form of government, it didn't have nothing to do with voting. They said 1 Samuel 12:17, your wickedness is great in asking for a king for yourselves. And I'll read it. I got it. I don't have to prove nothing to nobody. But the first 10 books of the Bible, they didn't have a secular government. They obeyed the elders and leaders of the family. And so that's where we get a grand jury from. Because at the common law, In ancient England, the elders of the community would be the ones to start the case. And if a case was commercial and didn't involve an injured party, they would throw it out. And then if a case be valid, then they would bring it to what they call the petite jury. Okay, where'd they get the petite jury? The petite jury was the 12. Okay, well, in the Old Testament, they got it from a dude named Jacob. Jacob changed his name to Israel. Israel had 12 sons. He taught 12 sons the laws and the facts. And then you get to the New Testament, they say in ancient England, they got that from the 12 patriarchs or the 12 apostles. Why? Because there was a dude named Christ, and he taught the 12 the law and the facts. And then afterwards, he said that they would be the judges of the nations. Right? So what's a Republican form of government? Oh, I got the picture above my head. I don't have the camera on my head. What's a Republican form of government? I forgot this picture was even up here. Where the sovereignty is based in the people. See, you see, I'd be forgetting I got this stuff up here. What's a Republican government? That comes from Article 4, Section 4 of the Federal Constitution, where sovereignty is vested in the people and exercised by the people directly. Where is that? How is that done? Grand juries, trial by juries. The United States Supreme Court said a grand jury is not even part of the court system. Technically, to them, all courts are commercial. So when they say the grand jury is not a part of the court system, okay, well, they're speaking on the sovereignty of the people through the grand jury. And then when a case gets before the petite jury, the 12, okay, well, they determine the law and the facts. We just read it in the Supreme Court of Indiana. Right? So when they're setting up the countries, or they're setting up the states, which to them was the same thing, they said sovereignty in a republic includes the right to establish, amend, and abolish governments. And it is simply absurd to say that a government in a republic is sovereign. And they got a book on this. They got a little, I don't know what you call it, a little chart. The people as sovereign communities was above the name of the states. They said New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. They said the people as sovereign. This is their law books. I didn't come up with this stuff. And then they got the Constitution under that. Then they got the government under that. He said the church is a business. The church you go to may be a business. But according to the Bible, you can't go to church. You could only be the church. So if you go to one that's a business, that's on you. Just like the sovereignty is in the people, well, the church is not a building. The court is not a building. The church is the people of God. Read Madison's notes of the convention and read what the founder said. I read what they said in the Declaration of Independence. Wisconsin's in the house. Michigan is a nation. Yes. The paper is the court. Nope. That's why we have a trial by jury. That's why we have a grand jury. See, all the feds start showing up when you start telling the truth. Oh, we got to get in the comment section and start derailing the conversation. He's telling too much truth. They start looking up this stuff.